Hey, you've tuned in to Cisco Unplugged.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cisco Unplugged. I'm Dan Klammert, leader of the Wireless Center of Excellence here at Cisco. This week, in episode 20, we'll be discussing back-to-school best practices. These sessions are very popular. In fact, this session, we did a version this past summer, 5 months ago, and is still one of the most popular and most viewed videos on our Unplugged channel. So I would like to welcome some very special guests today to the show. We have Mr. Clark Gambrill in sunny Florida. How are you doing, Clark? I think you're muted. Good to see you. And also we have Surendra and Salil from San Jose, California. Welcome. How are you guys?
Hey, Dan, doing good. How are you?
Great. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks. So before we get started here, I just got a couple reminders. So we will be recording this session, but we do have folks monitoring questions for or Slido for any questions. So if you do have questions, we use Slido. If you're joined via WebEx, you can see that Slido panel on the right-hand side of your WebEx window. If you're joined via YouTube, click the Slido link below and you'll see the password there to join the Slido. You can then submit any questions and we have folks standing by to answer them, but I'd prefer if we have some questions to ask them live today on the show. So, ask away if you've got any questions. So, as I mentioned, also, this session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@getunplugged. Also, you can go out to cs.co/getunplugged and register for upcoming episodes. We've got episodes scheduled here through the rest of calendar year 2023. So you can check out what we have on the docket coming up. And we've got some great content also planned for you in the new year. So that's it for the reminders. So on with the show. Surendra, take it away.
Dan, thank you so much. Hey, team. So today we will talk about the journey of 2023, back to school 2023. What did we learn? What are the different things that we did? And what are the recommendations? And then we'll go to the release recommendations. And this covers the ICE, the wireless, and some of the DNAC or the Catalyst Center. And then we move to the best practices section. So where we talk about the ICE best practices, then followed by wireless 2023 learnings and some of the best practices that we wanted to share with you guys. We'll end the session with the tools and the support and the question answer. So on the journey of back to school 2023, right? So I wanted to share some of the things that we did this time a little different compared to last year. So the main reason why we do this is to make sure that we provide all the recommendations and the best practices to our extended customers and make sure that they upgrade or do all the configuration changes or configuration recommendations, which will help them to maintain better health of the network, right? So what did we do in the month of May 2023? We formed the core team, adoption core team with comprising of wireless, ICE, switching, and DNAC. So it used to be wireless and ICE all this while, and this year we added switching and the DNAC as well. So we did a couple of best practices sessions. I think the first one happened in the May, and then in June, where we covered some of the sessions where the best practices were covered, the release recommendations were covered, and we prepped the team on some of the recommendations on the configurations and the best practices. So what we did, we formed the core sales team partnership as well. So there was a team space internally created so that anytime any customer reports any problem, sales team will get to know and sales team will reach out to us for any of the support, and we just jumped on it and supported. Extension of that, we just provided the single recommended release for the customers on 9800 iOS XE, which is 17.9.4, on the Catalyst Center 2337, and ICE as 3.2. So this happened in the month of May and June. What happened after? We monitored some of the EDCOS mailers incoming customer service requests or the tax service requests and the sales channels as well. On top of that, we were talking to ad hoc customers to kind of get some of the insights, what's working, what is not. And it used to be like 911 support for majority of the customer escalations that we used to get. And what is the outcome of this, right? So just one executive escalation. Other than that, we avoided 7 exec escalations within engineering and with the CX teams. And the great news is 85% decrease in the number of escalations compared to last year or from back to school season. So back to school 2022 to 2023, it's 85% decrease in escalations. And I would like to thank each and everyone on this call and to the customers that thank you for going upgrading your network to the right recommended release, following the best practices, which made sure that the number of issues that you faced got reduced to 85% this year. And what we worked on is around 35 critical accounts that we resolved as well. And what is coming up? We're focusing on replicating the same back to school momentum to retail, hospital, and we're planning to do the same thing for winter season as well, which is today, right? So this is the whole journey of 2023 back to school, right? Sorry, Salil. Yeah. So now, what is the recommended release, right? So now uh, there was a problem or there was a concern from the customers coming through, which is, hey, you know what? I have 17.3, 17.6, and 17.9. What should I do? There are two multiple recommended releases for me, and I'm confused, right? So for this, we came up with a solution. So last year to this year we made one single release as a recommended release for any deployment. It doesn't matter whether you're EDU or whether you're the vertical as hospital or whether you're vertical as enterprise. So one single release, which is 17.9.4 or 17.9.4a, is the recommended release. And this release supports Wave 1 iOS access points, Wave 2 IoT access points, Wi-Fi 6 and 6E access points. So we do have the release notes documented, so you guys can look into it and just read through some of the gotchas that we have, or the issues, or the open caveats and resolved caveats, and then upgrade to this release. Overall, from the solution point of view, this is our recommendation from 9800. It is 17.9.4 or 17.9.4a, and from the AP point of view, it is Wi-Fi 6, 6E. It supports .11 AC, IoT Wave 1 and Wave 2 APs. If you still have some of the legacy controllers, which is AeroS controllers on 5508s or 8510s or those kind of controllers, then your recommended release is 8.5.182.104. It's end of life right now, but if you still have those devices and if you still want to use it, then this is the version. Then you have the Gen 2 AeroS controllers, which is 5520s and 8540s. So on these controllers, if you want to do IRCM between the 9800s and the AeroS Gen 2, then 810.190 is the recommended release. From the DNAC or the Catalyst Center, so we've given the matrix, so it is 2337 is a recommended release, but there is a new version as well available. And on the Prime 3.10.4, CMX 10.6.3, and on ICE, we have 3.2. So at any point of time, you guys want to know what is the latest on the TAC recommendations, we've given you guys the link here, compatibility matrix, and recommendations for the AeroS controllers, and also the DNAC matrix as well. At any point of time, you guys can click on this. This will have the latest and the greatest update. Sorry,
Hey,
was there a
Surendra?
question? Yep.
Yeah, there is a question actually. This is specific to 17.6.5. If they're running 17.6.5 and they want to upgrade to 17.9.4a, they're confused about AP service packs, and they also want to deploy 17.9.4 AP SP2, but it doesn't seem to be available for 4a.
It is done. So that is work in progress. In next couple of weeks, we should have that on the CCO.
Okay, thanks.
I think as they should have been up as of Monday night. The APSPs for 17.9.4a.
Okay.
Dan. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Hello.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what did we do in May, June? So it's just YouTube link. You guys can scan this QR code and it'll redirect you guys to what did we cover in the month of May and June, all the learnings pre back to school season. So all the prep work that we did. And today, the plan is to kind of make sure that what did we learn from May, June to today, and share those things so that for next couple of deployments, the next couple of months, and any new deployments that is coming in, you guys can make use of this learnings and take care of the network. And we are here to help you guys as well. Okay. With that, I'm going to hand it over to ICE best practices. Clark, who's our ICE point of contact and the escalation point of contact, will cover this. Clark, over to you.
Double muted. It strikes again. You can hear me now, correct?
We can. Yep, we got
Okay,
you.
perfect. Yeah.
Go
That's
for
twice
it.
I've been muted. Okay, perfect. I said it never fails at my house. Just when it's time to speak, someone comes to my door. But that's the life of work at home, I guess.
You're not usually so quiet, Clark.
I know. Usually way more excited.
I knew something was wrong.
Yep. Okay, thanks. So yeah, as Surendra had mentioned in the previous slide, the current release that we're looking at is recommended is 3.2. Patch 4 is out. It's been out as of October 19th. There's a QR code there that you can pull down the release notes. I know everybody loves to read release notes, but there's some good stuff there. You can continue, Salil. Thanks. I do want to bring mention to a field notice here for those that are using Microsoft Intune as an MDM. Microsoft has deprecated their NAC API, so that kind of changes the way we have to do things. We can no longer use like the endpoint MAC address and such. So we were able to get them to extend the support of that. But coming very soon here, we will have to move off of that and move to the version 3 API that's going. So when that happens, you just need to make sure you're on 3.1, latest patch, 3.1 patch 8, or 3.2 patch 4 and above to be able to continue. If you're not using it, it's not going to affect you. From end of life notice, and I'm sure there's still some people out here. This is a great opportunity during the shutdown season to polish up those ICE deployments and get something new and shiny in there just in time for the holidays. So 2.7 is end of software maintenance. It's we're no longer building any patches whatsoever for that. It will completely lose its support in September 2024. In addition, 3.0 is end of software maintenance. So currently we are still patching for only severity 1s and critical vulnerabilities, but that will also end July of 2024. TAC will continue to support it until July 2025. As for the SNS 3600 series appliance, the last ship date is today, so you better hurry and get it shipped out, I guess. So it'll end software maintenance, so that's the updates for any of the BIOS or anything next year, but it'll continue to be supported for replacements until August of 2028. I'd like to do a shameless plug on the next slide if I could, Salil. I really like 3.2 because it has log analytics, and I'm a big fan of getting a visualization of what's going on in the deployment as opposed to some of our static views that we have in the M&T. I certainly hope people appreciate this a little more, but it gives us the flexibility to tie together things that we can't in single page in the M&T, and it can really give us some quick ways to I jumped ahead, but that's okay. It gives us a really quick way to identify where the issue might be or where we can see a spike in that may indicate where the trouble is. Now, Salil, that's good. Thanks. Recommended BIOS. We do have a BIOS firmware available for the 3600 series appliance. You should patch those. They have security vulnerabilities in them, and we can do that. But here's a link to be able to find that in the guide to do that. So it's pretty straightforward. But just like software, there's sometimes a hardware component of it that we should update as well. I think I'm moving pretty swiftly here. Shipping hardware. We're shipping the new 3700 series appliance. I'm really excited about this because it gives us the addition to add solid state drives. In the past, during busy times, disk I/O really has a factor in some of this stuff. So I was excited that we've added the ability to populate these with solid state drives, as well as the self-encrypting drives if you're in an area where it's mandated that all the storage be encrypted. If you're using virtual machines, just make sure that you mimic the like shipping hardware. So if you're doing it previously with a 3500 series, you're not really going to be matching any profile that we would have in newer code. The new appliances work, by the way, from a 3.1 patch 6 and above. So anything after that, you should be, if you're using virtual machines, you should readjust those sizings to mimic shipping hardware. That's the way we know how performance should be off of that. So it's just the best way to do. Some things to look out for. There's a defect in here. It's kind of a regression, I guess. But we've started noticing a live log delay if you're for TACAX or for Radius when we do this, and it has to do with load during these peak times. We're seeing this. There is a version agnostic patch that goes out there to just basically adjust some scripts, and I think there's some tables that might be missing in there. So the script will run. It's very easy to do, and it's just it doesn't have any real impact on the system when you do it, other than things start flowing much better. Next, yep. And another one, this one has bitten a few people. Just want to make you aware of it. It will be patched in the 3.2 patch 5, which should be out before long. But there is an issue if you check and then if you select all and then if you select all and then unselect all in the title bar under network device groups, and you click remove, it's going to delete all of your network device groups. So that is obviously a bad problem, and we want you to avoid that. So just pay close attention to this. I wouldn't think that you would be doing this, but just be aware it will be fixed in the next patch versions.
Hey, Clark.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a question here on
Yay.
how involved is the software related question. Is the upgrade from 3.1 to 3.2? It sounds like they've got some scars, unfortunately, from a previous upgrade from 2.6 to 3.1.
Yeah, so if you went from 2.6 to 3.1, I guess there was a couple steps involved there. It should be pretty straightforward. Even beyond 3.2 and 3.2 and beyond 3.2, we've really put some focus in the upgrade with respects to if things fails, how we can continue, where we can look at it in the process and get more understanding. Some of these depend on the way that you do it, and I understand the pain points that you have because I'm part of escalation. I get to see all of those unfortunate things that you have to deal with. I'm still a huge fan of upgrading not inline, but the other way. Spinning up another node or taking a node out of the system, upgrading it, and then doing a clean install on each one and joining back to the deployment. That's still my preferred way. It's the cleanest way to do it, but you can do it inline. That's what they've been trying to do a better job of making sure if there are any failure points, we can get the information that we need. We can do this, as well as running those pre-upgrade checks when we do this. So I would think your experience should be better going from 3.1 to 3.2 than it was previously from 2.6 to 3.1.
All right. Thanks, Clark. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Yeah.
Right. My name is Salil. I work in the wireless networking business unit. Work with Surendra, Clark, and a few others. So I wanted to go over the first things on my agenda was, okay, what did we do for 2023? Like, what did we learn, right? I mean, I know we've been doing quite a bit of best practices this year, and I wanted to showcase, where things were. So first, what we learned, and this was a surprise, we started getting 1815 AP crashes. This was an EOL access point. We got quite a bit of customers reporting that they're seeing abnormally high amount of 1815 crashes. Although this was an EOL product, we thought that the amount of customers seeing this problem seemed like a regression from past, and we worked with our vendor and found the fix that was done 3 years back was causing a regression. And we just released APSPs on 17.3.7 and 17.9.4 as of last week. And 4A APSP was delivered on Monday night. So if you guys have these access points, I would highly encourage, if you see some crashes, try to upgrade the software there. The second biggest one that hit us was high WNCD CPU during class transitions. Although I would say 99% of most of the best practices that we shared in our May-June really helped. And the customers who fine-tuned them to their boxes, it really helped them. And the few that Surendra mentioned earlier, the 35 odd escalations that we got, they really failed to know about this session, or they really like to know that this session existed so they could have changed. But as and how we got the best practices done on their systems, they were all up and running. There were, I would say, probably 1 or 2 customers who we had to give this specific fix, especially in high density. So there would be like this fix is rolled into now 17.9.5 and also 17.12 too. So you don't need to rely on ES. So on the next upgrade, when we plan 17.12, this learnings will be incorporated. However, there is one customer which we are working to fine tune, which has quite a bit of clients connecting to outdoor access points, and we are seeing some high WNCD. So we're looking at reviewing the site surveys and how things are configured there. But overall, high WNCD, in my view, was quite less of a problem, except for things if they didn't follow the best practices, as we mentioned. The next, there were a few customers who reported IP theft messages. They were probably more observing the syslogs on their end. And we found that over the course of 2 or 3 months, when we were debugging, we saw at some point the session timeout or the idle timeouts on the controller was way higher in the orders of like few hours versus the DHCP lease time. So obviously your DHCP lease would expire, but the sessions on the controller would still exist, and then the DHCP would hand out the same IP addresses again. That caused a little bit of problems. But there were also situations where we learned some DHCP servers would reuse the last used IP address, so instead of the coldest IP, so that also contributed towards some of these IP theft messages. But over the course, when iOS 17.1 or 2 came across from Apple, we saw this kind of trending downwards. So seems like we might have had some fixes around this from Apple as well. The MDNS storms, this is again one of the best practices that we recommended earlier in the year. What we felt was there were a few customers who unknowingly had some low-end AP platforms, even though there was a storm of MDNS traffic coming in. Overall, they saw good performance on their 9130s, 3800 access points, or the 9166, but then they saw low-end access points like 1815s or somehow they were choking the system with high QBSS. So when we reconfigured the MDNS profiles properly on the wired and the wireless, things were all back to normal. And the last, actually, I should say the last one, this was a surprise for us. We were chasing this IRCM R flood for quite some time. So if you have IRCM and you see a high WNCD, we suspect there is some leakage of R packet from the old IRCM controllers that, because you're sharing the same VLANs on the 9800s, the 9800 is looping back onto the IRCM mobility channel, and then the CPU is spiking high. So the customers that were impacted, we looked into their use cases, and for most part, they said we really don't need IRCM. We are phasing out. So that was how we addressed these problems today. And last, there were some daredevils who said, hey, I don't want to try 17.9 because I really like some of the features in 17.12. And it worked well for most part. So I was pleasantly surprised. So this is probably going to be our next recommendation coming in next year, when we do probably sometime in summer of next year. Right. Let me move on to the next slide. So this is a refresher, and I will try to go over as quickly as possible so we can have more Q&As. So this is something that I would highly recommend, the WLC Raman. This has some critical fixes, so I always like what's available on our CCO. Please try to download when you have a chance. Even though you are probably on 17.9.4 or 4A, it's still okay to upgrade if you haven't upgraded. If you are still on the older releases, 17.3, 17.6, there's still chance for you to upgrade to 17.9.4A. I would recommend you guys focus on the upgrade paths and the release notes caveats, especially if you have 9130s, you can't just directly upgrade, you will fail upgrades. Obviously, if you're trying ISSU upgrades, follow the release notes in terms of there are certain commands that we deprecated in the future release. So ISSU needs to make sure before you upgrade, those commands have been removed from your previous versions. So just keep an eye on them. They are documented in our release notes for your information.
One more thing to add on the ISSU is whenever the ISSU fails, you will always get an error that why ISSU failed, and using those show commands, we will be able to identify what exactly the error is. We can remove those commands or some sort of errors, whatever that we get, and then we can redo the ISSU and get it successful. So that's one of the things that we see a lot of incoming TAC cases wherein the ISSU failed and customer goes and does the full upgrade, which is actually not needed. We can take some corrective actions on what that error is and what should we do to overcome that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point, Surendra. Yep. All right. So this was a recommendation we gave in summer. It didn't prove a big problem. I haven't seen like many TAC cases coming in on this, but I just thought to let you guys aware. AP image corruption. So one thing to remember, we got quite a few customers who were trying to provision, especially partners, trying to provision access points in schools over the WAN link. And we saw the new out-of-box access points 9166, especially running into this problem. So we have taken actions on our side. The manufacturing images have been upgraded on the controller side to 17.9.4, and they will go to 17.9.4A due to the PCERT in the next few weeks. Also on the access points, by end of this month or early next month, we plan to ship all the hardware with 17.9.4 access point software. So all of these fixes will be inherently available in those base images. So we tend to make sure that these issues don't happen again. This is 9105s. There were select customers on 9105s that were impacted. I think we gave a heads up earlier in summer. We did have fixes on these. So if you have some of these 9105s, and if you want to look into if you're impacted, look into this URL and you could put in the serial numbers. You can get an analysis of whether you should need this fix. Obviously, all of these fixes we are rolling into our 17.9.5 and 17.12.2. So you don't need to worry about making these changes in future. All right. This is again a Wi-Fi 6E. I still continue to keep a close eye on Wi-Fi 6E as Apple has released newer devices on iPhones, the Macs, and Google has released quite a bit of their Pixel series as well. Obviously, you
Salil?
still have. Yes, go ahead,
Oh,
Dan.
Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you there. I would just wanted to interject a few questions here
Sure.
before we jump to the next section. We had one question asking about 17.12 and why that's not a current recommended release. So can you speak to that one?
Yeah, so our 17.12.1 and is mostly feature rich. We try to get folks to get us feedback. There's quite a bit of internal found defects that we skipped in .1. We try to address in .2. So similarly, as we mature into .3, right, typically we start recommending on a mass scale, right? But we had situations where some customers tried on 17.12.1, and obviously some of them also tried 17.12.2 EFT on a large scale with about 5 to 10,000 access points, about 20, 30,000 clients. They were all fine. But I tend to be a little bit more conservative when we give out like recommendations on .1 and .2. But there's certainly, I haven't seen any big blockers for if someone wants to perceive the
Yeah.
17.12.
So just to add to what Salil said, Dan, normally the recommended release happens on .3 and above. And
Sure.
right now the .17.12 is in 17.12.2 time frame, and another release, another 3 months from now, it'll be marked as the recommended release. So that's more or less the plan what we have, and maybe next session that we have, you will see 17.12.3 released, and that'll be the recommended release for some of the customers.
All right. Thanks, Salil. Thanks, Surendra. That was a good question too. Thanks for asking that one. And then also one other question here, real quick. Well, I know we're moving, I think, to the 6E portion, but our 6E APs supported on the EWC, like for example, the 9130 as master.
No, that we will not be supporting that, Dan, today.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, if no more questions, I'll go into the Wi-Fi 6E. So on the Wi-Fi 6E, I think we are still closely looking at the adoption from the clients, from the access points, and from the technology. So I think the first important is, I guess, the WLAN, right? And I think you will slowly start seeing as people start migrating to 6E access points, and they want to utilize the 6 gigahertz radio. 17.12 will probably become a lot more flexible for you. As I go through these options today in 17.9, you have to create two different or multiple policy profiles to get your existing clients to connect and the new clients to connect to in 6 gigahertz. And the roaming between the two bands today is not supported in 17.9. And I feel personally this limitation will get to 17.12, which we have addressed, that a lot of customer migrations will solely depend on this configuration that is available in 17.12. Obviously, we are coming up with the 9166Ds. Then there are a few other access points and features supported there in 17.12 that will naturally migrate quite a bit of customers in the next few months, right? So as of, I would say, March of next year, when 17.12.3 will be published, we will more likely start recommending that release. So if you are today, I would probably focus on 17.9. If you are really daredevil, you say, hey, I really like those few customers who have tried 17.12 and they look happy, and I want to take that feedback and roll into 17.12, that's also perfectly fine. We'll be there to support whenever you need. The next is RF profiles. So this is something we continue to recommend with 80 megahertz for US and 40 megahertz for US, for Europe, and for typically we have seen good success with PSC channels. So and we are continuously working with our vendors, be it Intel, Apple, Zebra, All of these vendors, we continuously work with them. They help us, we help them. We are doing roaming tests and different behaviors. So I think recommendations has always been stay on the latest drivers because they do improve quite a bit of 6E stuff in there and bug fixes. All right. Any questions on this, Dan, or are we okay onto the last section, I believe, on the best practices on the controller?
Yeah, thanks, Salil. I think we're good. There is a question that was asked about WNCD balancing and differences between 17.9 and 17.12, but I believe you have a slide on that coming up.
Yep. We'll talk about them in a little bit in detail now here. Yep.
All right, so stay tuned.
Yep. Right. All right, so here you go. So just a refresher. So we have multiple WNCDs, and really you needed these multiple WNCDs was to cater to the evolving client base, the scale, the amount of throughput that you're getting from access points. You really couldn't survive continuing with the Air OS model. You really needed next generation of OS that could scale to the demanding needs of different client behaviors. So that's why you had this distributed architecture of WNCDs. And obviously that created some challenges on our side with how do you distribute the load. So we came up with two things. One was in 17.9, there was a feature called enhanced site tag based load balance. So you could go ahead and define a load for a site. So for example, if a site that has normal client density, you could keep it as a site load of maybe 100. But if you feel there is a high density, high roaming, you could increase that site load to 300 or 400. And in 17.12, obviously I probably missed that slide to insert here. We have made it even more seamless. We are making it utilizing our 11K neighbor reports to generate this automatic site load balancing. So if you are on 17.12, you want to leverage that feature, you could certainly go ahead, and so you don't need to manually go ahead and define the site load. Obviously, you might need to fine tune here and there, but for most part, you could leverage the 11K. So I'm still eager to find from customers in 17.12 how the 11K site load balancing feature is working. I mean, we have probably customers trying that out, but I don't have like a huge feedback to say, how the situation is. But obviously, as we come into next year, we'll share that feedback as how we learned that feature on.
Hey, Salil?
Yep.
We do have a quick question that just came in around transition mode and how that works specifically with WPA 2 and 3. Is it recommended if I'm deploying 6 gigahertz in my schools in my district?
Yeah. So if you have if you have these configurations, so what will happen is your clients who are only 2.4 and 5, they will continue to work on this mode. But if you have clients that can do both 5 and 6, enabling this feature would, at least the boxes that I've highlighted, they seem to work a lot easier from a transition perspective.
Great, thanks.
All right. All right. Okay, let's go back to, okay, so this is one of the learnings. We had, quite a bit of customers who said my ice melted down and Clark had to jump in. So we found out that, this feature existed. We had it turned on by default for obvious reasons that we didn't want to break our previous functionality. So we had some customers go ahead and turn off, especially if their ice wasn't scaled up with respect to the number of CPUs you had. So this kind of proved really helpful there on the interim accounting. iOS AP search. So I really got really good feedback from several customers that having the ability to support these on 17.9, and by the way, we are supporting this in 17.12 as well, the iOS APs. So as you transition to get these APs out and add new access points, you can still upgrade to 17.12 if you would like to. Obviously, you may see this certificate expire in this transition. So just make sure you have these mitigation steps because they have a validity of 10 years on them. This was again a top best practice. We found quite a bit of customers changing the idle timeout from like 300 seconds to like I would say like 4 hours to 6 hours. You really don't want to do that 6 hours, because if your anticipation is that in future your clients will automatically come back, no, if they sleep, they tend to come back and authenticate again. This used to be a good feature when we used to do web authentication on our controllers way back 10 years back, where the clients would time out the web auth and they had to input the credentials or hit the checkbox. So that was the reason this feature came in. But now with .1x, you really, when the client goes in sleep state, they really come back and go through the full authentication. Obviously, the session timeout, we continue to see interoperability issues with different vendors. So I strongly recommend, if you really don't need 30 minutes, which is our default, which we have also changed to 8 hours, I believe, in 17.12. I would recommend to keep anywhere between 8 to 24 hours, depending upon your situation. This is a common one, web UI slowness. If you haven't been aware of the configuration, so these you need to make sure you enable from line VTY to service TCP keep alives. This was 8211 data rates. This was pretty helpful, especially in outdoor environments where you had like 6 Mbps enabled and 1 Mbps enabled. That caused far away clients to connect, and this caused quite a bit of high WNCD on some of the customer deployments. So we recommend you stick to your RF domain and try to restrict as much possible so clients could choose the nearest access points. This is something I see a lot of customers configure their ADS servers. They really do it, and they try to put the dead time, but they fail to add the dead criteria, and they fail to add the automate tester. So just bits and pieces where I feel if you can add these 2 commands, if you haven't, this will help you graceful failovers and right failovers on the AAA side. This is something where you want a predictability in terms of who is your RRM leader, especially when our boxes are scaling now to 2,000 access point and 6,000 access points. It really does not make sense to have like a controller that is another heavily loaded to be a leader of like 12,000 access points. It was back in the days like 10, 15 years where you had a 4400 controller with 50 or 100 access point support, which generally you required about 5 of those controllers to maybe do like one building, and you really needed one controller to act as a leader. But I don't see this to be a big problem today. This is on the control plane. These are some of the things that we learned. This didn't prove a big impact, but certainly these do give some level of lower WNCD if you care about fine-tuning some of these sites from a probe limit perspective. The MDNS again continued. We had quite a bit of customers configuring like everything from MDNS policy perspective, and sometimes they didn't have filtration in the from a radio RF perspective. So you were advertising your MDNS service across the whole campus. So your one device was getting advertised across entire network. So you should probably leverage the LSS. This is a location-based MDNS, so you really can get right Apple TVs or the right printers closest to you if you enable this feature, and obviously it will help tremendously reduce the load on your network in addition to the controllers. The 11K, this is something that we've seen in outdoor deployments with stadiums where you have quite a bit of clients, especially at the entry and exit points where you start seeing a storm of these client associations, and we see a lot of neighbor lists being populated. So if you have fully outdoor deployment with that specific SSID controller, then it might be good to turn this off, as clients traditionally rely on RSSI based associations, and we definitely want to rely that on stadium kind of deployments. These were SNMP process. There were quite a few customers who would enable a lot of polling. There were some servers that polled every 60 seconds to 180 seconds. I would say look into those SNMP MIPS. If you really think you need those 60 seconds, watch out for this CPU going high. But for most part, I think most customers have been okay to stay with 15 to 30 minutes interval for these MIPS. This is something on the DNAC that will help. On the controller, we send almost every rogue, and every rogue, it changes RSSI every minute. We will send that information back to DNAC, and we've seen that this has caused quite a bit of processing on the DNAC. So obviously, I probably prefer to have the rogues sent at -75. Maybe you could do -80 or 85, right? But the RSSI deviation is something really important. I always try to see the rogues change RSSI. If every poll you see like they're minus, they'll change by 1 or 2 dB, that will trigger the updates to go out. So it's always better you try to add this in your configurations.
Before you jump forward there, we had a DNAC question, so that's why I just want to jump in here, Salil. If I use DNAC to configure my 9800 controllers, does it automatically load balance the WNCDs for me, is the question.
That's a very good question. So today it still does not. You would still have to rely CLI-based templates to push through DNAC to load balance that from a load perspective. But we are working to optimize this flow in the DNAC so it can automatically load balance.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. I agree.
Yep.
And one question a few slides back, you don't have to jump back, but when you were talking about the RF group leader, does AI-RRM change anything in relation to that?
So from an AI-RRM, so AI-RRM will become, if you work towards AI-RRM, then the AI-RRM will become the leader for your controllers. So that will basically dictate your channel and power. So that will override what you have locally on the box.
Great. Thanks, Salil.
Right. Okay, and this is a best practices guide that we have out. So please review it for additional details. We'll go into the last, I believe this is the last section. So hopefully this will be quick. This is tools and support. I always like these slides, especially when you are in a situation where, hey, what do I need to learn about the product? How do I start? What do our TAC engineers do when we receive a TAC case, right? So they more likely, they rely on these tools and I felt these would be important that we could share to our customers. So the log advisor is something that you can basically look at, hey, if I have a client connectivity problem, what logs does Cisco need or Cisco TAC needs to look at even before you open up a TAC case? You have those right away available for you. If you are curious on, let's say, hey, I collected these logs, and what do I do? I want to learn myself. You could look into these wireless debugs, understanding wireless debugs that we have laid out. There's also wireless troubleshooting tools that we have put, and some of them are pretty cool that you don't see in anywhere in the industry. One was config analyzer that can give you good insights into, and part of that config analyzer model we've actually added in our AI RRM in the cloud. So that is one important tool. There was Wi-Fi Hawk, where you could potentially take a wireless sniffer and go through it. And we have about 200 signatures that we know we run into. And you could see where the problems are, whether it's a client side, whether it's an access point side, or whether it's an RF issue. Similarly, we have also gone ahead and given some additional tools with statistics, and you should be able to leverage those if you want to know and learn about them. Okay. Right. Okay. So this is something that's really to my heart, and I take it very seriously for my customers. So often we develop products, develop softwares, and when we have customers adopt them, probably 9 months down the road, you find some of stupid things that we have done in our products, and you feel, hey, it would have been nice someone could have pointed to us that we could have taken actions on. I know there are several who I work with from an EFT perspective, be it software, hardware, or solution. It would be nice if you want to participate, you want to give your first candid feedback, you want to try that first hardware, hit us up on this mailer and we'll definitely see how we can get you up to speed and what we do and get your feedback there. And with that, I don't have anything else. Probably I'll hand out to you, Dan, if there are any questions we could take, or we could go into the last segue.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Salil. I think we can move forward with the last slide, the escalation process slide. Yeah, I don't see any additional questions. We'll give you a minute here if you want to ask any questions while I cover this, and then we'll wrap up. But what I like to remind customers is that more importantly, is you set the priority of your TAC case. So you may or may not know there's different levels of severity of your TAC cases. Severity level 1 is the most important critical network down emergency, whereas severity level 4 would be the, they're looking for some information on installation configuration. There's really zero or no impact to the business operation there. So if your TAC case is not moving forward or progressing in a timely manner, I would encourage you to contact the TAC, ask to have the case escalated, make sure that your case is set at the appropriate priority or severity level, ask for a tech lead. If you're not getting anywhere in that regards, you can ask for a duty manager and they will help you escalate the case. And still, if you're struggling or you need some further assistance pushing things along, don't hesitate to reach out to your Cisco SE and or account team, your account manager. And if by chance you do not know who that is, you can always reach out to us. You can email us at getunplugged@cisco.com. But first and foremost, reach out to your Cisco SE and or AM if you know who that is, and they can help in that case as well to help escalate and move things along. So thank you very much for everyone for watching. Thank you, Clark and Surendra and Salil, for some great information on the winter break edition here of our Back to School Best Practices episode. I know we went a little long on time, but I think it was worth it and really appreciate everyone tuning in, questions. There is a question actually that came in here at the last minute. Going back to Wi-Fi 6E, how does the open SSID work? I don't know if that question makes sense to you, Salil, if you want to take that or...
Yeah, we have to see, I know there's quite a bit of interest in, moving things on open SSID stuff, but we have to look at, overall how the adoption is going to line out. But I mean, it's still evolving, right? So we're learning. I don't see there is like a direction that all of them will go through open SSID kind of concept, right? So we'll have to see, Dan, how it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Salil. One last question was, will these slides be emailed? I think Alan asked that one. Alan, if you could email us at getunplugged@cisco.com, we can send that. But in general, this content is archived out on our YouTube channel, so you can watch this and review and fast forward through and see any of this information. But if you email me at that email address, be happy to share this information with you as well that way. So as you close out, I would also ask you to complete the survey. Do us a favor, give us some feedback. And we do look forward to seeing you on another episode in the future. We will do another back to school episode in the spring summer time frame. So if you go out to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@getunplugged and subscribe there, you will be notified when we do go live and with future episodes and future content. So we'd encourage you to do that so you can stay close to that. And like I mentioned our contact info. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to your account team as well. But thank you again for a great episode. And until next time, stay connected and unplugged.